these foods are produced by animals that have the estrous cycle. And without the estrous cycle, we wouldn't be able to produce as many foods as we can today. As stated in Pathways to Pregnancy and Parturition, the estrous cycle is the reproductive cycle of non-primate females and is generally defined as the period from one estrus to the next. Today I would like to inform you of what the estrous cycle is, the hormones associated with the estrous cycle, and advanced reproductive technologies associated with the estrous cycle. The livestock industry survives on being able to regulate the estrous cycle, which means breeding at certain times to increase conception rate. The estrous cycle consists of a series of predictable events beginning with estrus and ending with subsequent estrus. Estrus is only interrupted by pregnancy, nursing, season of the year in some species, inadequate nutrition, or high-stress situations. During the estrous cycle, structures on the ovary depend on what hormones are present. There are two phases in the estrous cycle, the follicular and the luteal. They are named depending on what structure is on the ovary. During the follicular phase, follicles dominate the ovary, and the eggs are housed within the follicles. During the luteal phase, the corpus luteum dominates the ovary, and this is the scar that is produced after the egg ovulates. There are also 4 sections of the estrous cycle: proestrus, estrus, medestrus, and diestrus. Proestrus is when the ovulatory follicle forms before ovulation. Estrus is when the egg is released from the follicle. This is when the cow or the other animal is able to get pregnant, which is when you should breed them. Medestrus is when the corpus luteum begins to form, and diestrus is when the corpus luteum is maintained. Every species has a different length of estrous cycle. The dog comes into heat, or estrus, every 6 months. The cow, mare, and sow every 21 days. The cat and ewe every 17 days, and the llama every 10 days. Since the estrous cycle is such a complicated process, many hormones are involved. According to the Essential Reproduction Text, the main reproduction hormones are gonadotropin-releasing hormone, luteinizing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, progesterone, and estrogen. All of these hormones are regulated by the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis, which is right here. So the hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin-releasing hormone, which goes to the anterior pituitary. That stimulates luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. That goes to the ovaries, which secretes estrogen back to the hypothalamus to tell it to stop secreting when there is enough. After ovulation, the corpus luteum is the dominant structure. If the egg is fertilized, the corpus luteum will stay on the ovary, which prevents estrus, so she doesn't cycle anymore during pregnancy. If the egg is not fertilized, the corpus luteum will regress, estrogen becomes dominant, and she will cycle again. Estrogen and progesterone are competing hormones. Estrogen is seen during the proestrus and estrus, or the follicular phase, and progesterone during the luteal phase. So this is a chart of the key hormones. So progesterone will go down during ovulation, since estrogen goes up and stimulates ovulation. Luteinizing hormone goes up right before ovulation, which also triggers ovulation. And follicle-stimulating hormone rises at certain increments to stimulate follicles forming so ovulation can occur. Through research and greater knowledge of the estrous cycle, we are able to manipulate an animal's reproductive cycle to ensure the highest possible conception rate. A lecture by Christian Jackson discussed many advanced reproductive technologies such as sexed semen, which uses a flow cytometer. Egg-bearing sperm has 3 to 4% more DNA. When you add dye to the sperm, the egg sperm takes up more dye, and the machine sorts on the amount of dye taken up. This is especially important for the dairy industry because females are more useful than males. Sex semen can then be used in artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, or embryo transfer. Artificial insemination of semen is the collection of semen, preservation and extension, and then insemination of the female. In vitro fertilization is when the female is stimulated to produce multiple follicles, so the egg is still inside of the follicle. The eggs are aspirated from the follicle and fertilized in a petri dish. They are then grown in an incubator for 7 days and then either transferred to a surrogate mother or frozen. Embryo transfer is when a female is stimulated to ovulate more than one egg. She's then bred. When she enters estrus, the embryos develop in her for 7 days and then are flushed out and can either be transferred to surrogate mothers or frozen. These advanced reproductive technologies allow for production of many more embryos from elite cows or other species, thus raising yields and production. Such as at Transovogenetics, their average number of viable embryos from these technologies is 5.1, and the average number of embryos transferred is 6, compared to only 1 if you were to do it naturally. Huge progress in regards to passing down elite genetics at a rapid pace is due to advanced reproductive technologies. The estrous cycle is a complicated yet understood process that we can manipulate in order to produce elite offspring to add to the production cycle and food chain. Today we discuss the estrous cycle is hormones associated with the estrous cycle and advanced reproductive technologies associated with the estrous cycle. With education and implementation of the knowledge and tools of the estrous cycle to the entire world, we could increase production dramatically and help feed the world.
Well, it would have been boring because I know all that.